The Forward Party's Andrew Yang tweeted, "I'm not a Trump fan. I want him far away from the White House as possible. But a fundamental part of his appeal has been that it's him against a corrupt government establishment. This rage strengthens that case for millions of Americans who will see this as unjust persecution." He is getting sort of ratioed, as they say.
Oh, is he?
For that tweet. It's about Even Stevens reply.
Even's not good. Even is a loss, as you and I know.
Yeah, which is interesting, because I think that what he's saying on a factual basis is true. Regardless of how you feel about Trump, this is obviously going to galvanize.
Well, I think
now
it's got more likes than. Well, no, you're right. It's never mind.
It's going to galvanize some portion of the public. Whether or not that matters, if you think there's really been a crime committed here, I don't think that you can comms test every single thing that the Justice Department does. But it is interesting that even stating the obvious like that has gotten him into a little bit of hot water.
So Yang followed up that tweet with, "It seems like this was authorized by a local judge and a particular FBI office without buy-in or notification of higher levels of government." I'm not sure about that. "Literally no one will believe that or make a distinction. It is probably bureaucratic, but it seems political." And then he quotes from this Politico story that everyone's been quoting from. "If they raided his home just to find classified documents he took from the White House," one legal expert noted, "he will be reelected in President 2024 hands down. It will prove to be the greatest law enforcement mistake in history."
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure what this legal expert's political prognostications are worth, but the rest of it I take very seriously.
Yeah, and one other point on that, the argument that this is an unprecedented action to take against a former president is a reasonable one. What some leftists have been arguing is that is a problem. That, again, presidents, elites, important people have been free from the kind of criminal liability and follow-up and accountability that the rest of us have had to deal with always. And that when Bush stepped down, Barack Obama, or when he lost, when he stepped down, Barack Obama famously made the argument that, we're looking forward, not back. We're not going to persecute for him in his war crimes or anything else. And people applauded that decision at the time. But a lot of folks on the left said that was a mistake, that the problem with this country is there is no accountability for the people who run it into the ground because the presidents want to take care of the position. Presidents want to make sure, elites, powerful people want to make sure that they're not ever going to be held accountable.
But there's supposed to be electoral accountability.
For doing the same thing the last guy did. If you break laws, the president is not above the law either. That is a principle that many people feel like should be respected. But unfortunately, there is this kind of built-in presumption that, well, if you did it in the context of being the president of the United States, you should have complete and total carte blanche to behave as you would like.
But the idea is that it's in the people's judgment to decide who the president should be, and
who the president should be, not whether or not the president has committed a crime.
Well, right, but to the extent these efforts are aimed at Trump in order to make it impossible for him to run for president, that's part of the conversation.
To the extent potential.
Right. If he committed crimes, he should be prosecuted. But it's the kind of crime matters, because there are procedural crimes. There are crimes that they can get all of us for. The obstruction of. They can try to get you for something, fail to find evidence that you committed that crime, and then charge you with obstruction of justice, basically because you tried to maintain your innocence throughout this process. That has ensnared many people. Mere procedural crimes, I don't think really anyone should be prosecuted with. Now, I take your point that, right, so much of the right only freaks out when it's Donald Trump is the subject of these things, and in fact, prosecutorial power and police misconduct and law enforcement, what we term the deep state, which it does exist, is wielded against all sorts of people, not just enemies of what's called the regime.
You have people here up in arms about the idea that something like this could happen to Donald Trump because he's Donald Trump. And presidents, again, Democratic presidents protect the presidency because they also want to be able to break the law.
Right.
Republicans then protect the Democrats because they want to be able to break the law. That's the cycle. That's the problem.
You're right.
Meanwhile, someone like Stephen Donziger, who I know has been covered on this show, an environmental lawyer who successfully won the largest judgment against an oil company in the history of the world for the pollution that they dumped in the Amazon, was literally incarcerated for years on a procedural claim of contempt of court. And all kinds of weird procedural shenanigans happened in that case, where a law firm that represented the oil company was put in charge of prosecuting the case, and it was a complete and total miscarriage of justice. And he literally lost his freedom for over a year as a consequence. But none of that is in the framing of the people who are now hand-wringing over
The U.S.
Trump.
government is trying to drag Julian Assange to the U.S. to imprison
Correct.
or maybe even kill
Correct.
him, to punish him for sharing
Correct.
information, that true, accurate information about the U.S. government that the U.S. government
Correct.
didn't want you to have.
So the issue here isn't the idea that I don't agree that there can be miscarriage of justice and people wielding power in a way that has purely political ends. But I want to try to disaggregate that from a question about whether or not, on the whole, it is a good thing for presidents to be accountable. And if Trump supporters say it's not fair that you're only doing this to Trump, I would argue back that you absolutely should hold all presidents accountable in the exact same way. That includes Joe Biden, who in an earlier segment was described as a war criminal by some. That includes Barack Obama. That includes George Bush. That includes everybody who's been in that oval.